Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, a new way to handbell. My name is Brenda Austin, and it is my sincere hope that through connecting with us today, you will be inspired to use handbells to make a difference, to add value to our world. Let's get out there and bring the ring.
Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring. My name is Brenda Austin and I'm the editor at Hope Publishing. With Bring the Ring, we are looking to connect with one another, to support one another, and see what we might be able to learn from each other. We are talking to composers, learning a little bit about them and their process. And I hope you brought your cowboy boots because today we are talking to Hart Morris. Hart is from the great state of Oklahoma, and he's our Southern gentleman of handbells. If you've ever worked with Hart, you have been taken in by his humor and his incredible sense of rhythm and direction. Hart is a percussionist by trade and has served much of his life in music ministry. He has many compositions that have been composed, and he's even asked handbell ringers to not just ring, but to stomp, clap, and hoot and holler during a performance. So welcome to Hart Morris. Hart, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And you? You're doing well?
We're doing good. We're staying warm. At least we're trying to.
Trying to, as are we. As are we.
I'm not sure when this will actually air, but right now we're actually filming this during the big cold snap in the South. So everybody down in the South is hunkering down for winter right now.
Yes, it's reaching down to Dallas, I understand.
Well, say you are retired now from full-time music ministry. So what does life look like for Hart Morris these days?
Well, it's never dull. 5 years before we retired, we moved out of Tulsa into Wagner County, just east of a little town called Coweta. We live on a few acres and have had 3 horses. We have 1 now, and a few neighbors. And it's kind of like Green Acres. We have a large garden in the back, and so I identify when the tomatoes don't work or the some other plant doesn't mature as it should. I identify with my agricultural grandfather who got to Oklahoma just in time for the Dust Bowl, and so it's never dull. It's always fun. There's always something going on.
Well, yeah. So a few acres. What does that mean? How many?
10.
Okay, that's just about right.
It's just about right. It can keep it mowed. There's plenty for the horses. It's worked out quite well, and we're very glad to be here.
Well, great. I mean, everything in life has a season, right? And
that's right.
You found your season, and
we did.
Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about your kind of compositional style, because I mean, you have your own style, and I don't think anyone else is even close to it. What have been your biggest influences?
I was raised on an eclectic musical diet. I've always liked a lot of different kinds of music. My parents were not privileged to be able to. They wanted to play musical instruments as children, but Dust Bowl, it was neither one of them had the privilege of doing that, and so they made sure that my sister and I both had some musical training. And young man across the street from where we lived, and he played the accordion, and then they said, you have to learn to play an instrument. And so I said, well, that thing that Johnny Clark is doing, I like that. That's pretty cool. So Mrs. Babcock was my teacher, and I learned to play the accordion, and it just went from there. So then when I got to the 6th grade band, they tried to make me play the French horn, but I held out for the drums, and that was a life changer. And so being in band and orchestra in those years was very educational for me. It gave me an appreciation for a lot of different kinds of music. So I guess eclectic is the best descriptor for it. Mm-hmm. And so, and being a percussionist, drummer, I was attracted to the rhythm and being an orchestra as a high schooler, I was exposed to a lot of different kind of orchestral music. I played in the high school band, of course, and we had a stage band, a big band that I played in as well, and played a little bit of jazz here and there too. That percussion background was instrumental in a lot of things that happened later for me as a conductor, as a church musician, and I got to play some in other places all along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
it opened a lot of doors, but the exposure to a variety of music was, I think, one of the best things for me, because I learned to appreciate a lot of different kinds of music. In fact, I took when I did my master's degree at the University of Houston, I had to take a 20th century music course, and I just, okay, I have to do this. But I learned from that because I learned to understand the music. I know 12 tone and all those things, but I'd never been involved in it. You don't do many offertories in a Baptist church in 12 tone row music.
No, you don't.
It doesn't seem to work. So I'd never been much on that, but I learned what it was about, and I learned to listen to it with different ears. I learned to understand it, and my father used to come to the symphony concerts, and he would say, "I don't know much about music, but I know what I like."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's probably most people are like
right.
that. That served me well in church music as well.
Sure.
To give a broad scope of different kinds of music.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think actually being a percussionist influenced your compositional style?
The rhythm is what drives it. I realized in choral music, the text should drive. The infectious thing to me, and I think I've used that word already once. It is the attractive part to me in many things is the rhythm and the movement that's in the music, but the rhythm and the motion is what speaks to me. I've done more arranging than composing, so that's a little different procedure. You've already got something to work with rather than trying to manufacture the whole creature.
Right. Like who influenced you, or who was part of getting you really a published composer and kind of making it onto the scene of the handbell world? Was there anybody that kind of influenced that?
I just fell into this. A couple in our church in Houston gave the church a set of handbells, and said, "Do you know handbells?" Came through the office one Sunday morning and said, "Do you know handbells?" Well, I just met handbells before I moved from Florida, and yes, I do, and I found it very interesting, and I look at that as a way to involve people in the music ministry that couldn't sing, didn't want to sing, they wanted to play something, and I thought that would be a great recruiting tool, and so they gave us. I think the 3-octave set in 1973 was $1,200.
Oh my goodness.
I believe that's what sticks in my mind. I don't have the paperwork on it, but that's what I remember. Bells came in January, and I went. The only person, my pastor said, "Well, now what are you going to do, big boy?" And he said, "I think you ought to find the person who knows the most about it and just go pick their brain." And I said, "That's a great idea. That's what I'll do." And the only name I knew, literally the only handbell name I'd ever heard, was Don Alred.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well start with the top.
Yep.
And so I didn't have any better sense than just to call the handbell god and say, "Can I come over and play in your sandbox?" And we were in Houston. It's about, I don't know, a couple or 3 hours drive to Lake Charles, where he was then, First Methodist Church. And she said, "Sure, come on over." He was very gracious, and we spent the morning, picked his brain for a couple of hours, and we went home and did what he said. And strangely enough, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
6 months later, I asked him to come over and bring that group and play for the church, and they did. And it just was like a match on a gas fire. So I decided I would try to arrange something for those kids to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I arranged Carol of the Bells. We made an album with it. The fellows who were there also had a publishing company, and they said, well, what are you going to do with this piece? And I said, well, I put it back in the drawer. I said, no one will talk to me about it. I don't know. You know, some people said, where can I find that? I said, I don't know. Here's the music. Play it if you want. The guy said, well, let us see if we can get it published. Okay, fine. And so they did. And then when that company folded, it was picked up by Harold Flammer. And it just one thing after another. And I was shocked. This is not anything I ever planned to do. The other thing about it is they said, you need to join the Handbell Guild. Okay, what is that? So they told me. One of the things I've appreciated about it over the years is meeting people outside my Baptist circle. I found wonderful musicians and wonderful friends that I never would have met had it not been for the bells and the writing. And somebody said, well, what would you come over and do this festival or this whatever? I don't remember the first thing I did. And I thought, are you got hello? Do you have the right number? And one thing just led to another.
Well, hey, we're going to talk about some of your pieces today. One of them is Soon and Very Soon. What can you tell us about that piece?
It's a catchy tune. And I honestly don't remember why I chose to do that. I liked the tune and I thought I could do something rhythmic with it.
Mm-hmm.
I added bass and drum, which gives it a little more kick, a little more punch to it, because you have those different timbres with it. And you know, you can add percussion to anything but Gregorian chant and make it better, in my estimation. Okay.
Yes.
And so when you put drums with it, it just puts that little snap. So that's one of the criteria that always has to be there for me, is that you need to be able to do with the bells something similar to what you would do with the kick from the things you add. So the march in the middle of it and is just that it needs to stand alone.
Sure.
And so I thought it would be a fun piece to do, and I had a good time with my group when I did it. Okay, let it roll.
Well, thank you for that. It's definitely a fun piece. And if you're looking for a little something with a little extra rhythm, I think Soon and Very Soon would be a great option for you. Thank you, Hart.
Thank you.
So, what advice do you have to give for people who are maybe starting their career as arrangers, composers, developing directors? What advice would you have for them?
Well, when you get to a point where you can't learn anymore, you're in dangerous work, dangerous territory. But never stop learning. Everybody has their own style, their own way of expressing their music, and so play to your strength, I guess, is where I'm going. If you do something well and you can write something that's interesting to play, fun to play, interesting to hear and listen to, in your own style, do it. Color outside the box. This will sound silly. Well, of course you have to do that. You have to understand the instrument. So knowing what handbells can do with realistic things, in the early days when there were a lot of us just kind of groping around, trying to write and do things with handbells, I saw a couple of things. I thought that's not very idiomatic to the handbell medium. Else, that doesn't work.
Right.
So I learned quickly what I could not do with it. Now there are some things that are out of the box. Coloring outside of the box, as I said, that do work, and it does make sense, but understanding what you're asking the people to do with this bell is very important, I think. It's just an old dog, new trick thing. Yeah. I'm the old dog. I'm still finding new ways to do. It was wonderful fun.
Can't agree more. The lifelong learner. I think when we stop learning, then we die. So we got to.
That's right.
Keep at it.
It's over.
Yep.
It's over.
Good for you. Well, the other piece I wanted to talk about today is Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. I think many community ensembles have lost some sleep over that one. Talk to me a little bit about that piece.
That's a big band piece. I mean, it was a World War II piece, but I've loved the piece, and I had known that piece since high school. I just got wild hair one day, and we did it with David and the Agape Ringers at the St. Louis Director Seminar. It was just another one of those things. I thought, this is a really wonderful tune, and I think I could, with that boogie thing in the bass, we can make that stand up and walk. And so it was a great fun to do it. I've done it at several festivals with the bronze groups, and it was great fun. So again, it's the rhythm and it's something different. I guess I'm addicted to something that you've never heard before, because that's what I tried to do in the music planning for the church. Say the same message in a different way, perhaps the way they're maybe a little bit uncomfortable with at first, but trying to get across something and say it in a different way that it will speak to somebody.
Sure.
Because everybody doesn't like the same thing. So. Right.
And maybe they'll hear the message that they didn't hear before because it was said a little differently.
That's right. A little bit differently. That's right.
All right. Well, we're going to listen to this one. Feel free to give commentary. This one is actually a performance of the Bells of Temple Square. So enjoy a little boogie woogie here. The hoot.
Oh, well, yeah, that bass player is having some kind of good time. And see, taking that bass line from the, if you do play it on the piano and spreading that out over a bunch of bells with one or two people to play it, I mean, there's no doubt there's a lot of work to make that work, to make it go. But if it's fun, it's worth the effort. And I think that's a fun piece to play.
Yeah.
That would be my estimate.
I played it once and I thought it was a heck of a lot.
Did you really? How nice. Oh yeah. And here, I mean, I love that group.
Well, I guess we're about done here, but what other like parting words do you have for us, maybe as we continue and as we start to get bells ringing again? What other words of wisdom do you have for us?
I guess one of the challenges has always been for me, and I never stop learning. There's always something you can do better. I was taken with a quote. I've used it a couple of times. I've only heard it a couple of years. It's from Vince Lombardi of all people, and he said, "Perfection is unattainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence." And because of the nature of our craft, a lot of times we have folks who are just beginning and they're afraid of this instrument. They're hesitant, totally understandable. But then you have groups like Bells and Timples Square. We run the gamut, but there's no reason whether it's a beginning group of sixth graders or a professional group or Bells on Timples Square, Raleigh, Agape, Hershey, all the things in between. There's still never a time to sit down and say, well, wasn't that great? We don't need to work hard anymore. And if you're nurturing a group and trying to get them to be better, you to know just how hard to push them. You can drown them, throw them in the lake and say good luck, and discourage them, or you can say, no, look, let me show you. Let me help you do that. This is what we can do. And I feel like if I had a group, if they're not doing better next year than they did this year, somebody's not growing. You know, there's always some improvement to be made. A little more interesting music, a little harder music, something else to push them. How hard do you push? The other thing is tempo is a real fetish for me. The first thing you got to do with anybody, any music, is play the page. You know, what's on there? How fast does it go? How loud is it? Where are the contrasts? Where's the music? Start with the basics. If it's too fast and they can't do it, wait till next year. Shaving 10 or 20 points off the tempo makes it a totally different piece. And that really is a bugger for me. I remember in a discussion with the composer, I wrote it this way, play what I wrote.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, that's good. That's true. But somebody else might have a better idea than I did. I wouldn't be ashamed of that if they played it and improved my piece. But there's only so far to go with that. Mm-hmm. If you decide to play in the key of G, but you don't like F sharp, you shouldn't mess with that. F sharp's key is a vital part of key of G. So you got to play the right notes. But the tempo, the making the music is the key. And if you decide to go too far away from that, I think you're in trouble. That's what I would say. Always strive to keep your group learning and growing, and you learn and grow. You're leading them. If they're not following you, you're not leading. So I guess that's it. Play the postlude. Sermon's over.
Yes, indeed. Well, Hart Morris, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Well, thank you, Brenda. It's a privilege to visit with you. And I as I say, I appreciate your invitation to be with you. It's been fun.
Very good. Well, take care.
Yes, ma'am. Stay warm.
Thanks for joining us today. Brenda Austin is the Handbell Editor for Hope Publishing, where we are equipping musicians for excellence. Visit hopepublishing.com or call 1-800-323-1049 for all your music needs. For questions about this episode of Bring the Ring, contact Brenda at brenda@hopepublishing.com. Our show notes can be found on our Facebook page or in the comments below.